we are recording this, and I will post it on the Google Drive after, and you can share with any members of your team, or if you have a new parent coming on. There's some very valuable information that Alan will be sharing, and we'll also get a PDF of his presentation following. So, as always, please mute yourself, videos off until the end, and Alan will answer any questions. In the chat bar on the side, you can feel free to ask a question, and I'll interrupt Al as we go. And I'll put my cell number there as well if you just want to send me a private text. But if anybody's looking for the dynos presentation from yesterday from Matt Barry, I just received a PDF copy, so I will be emailing it out to you guys along with the Zoom recording. So I will be sending that out shortly while Alan is speaking. So without further ado, Mr. Naylor, take it over. I'm checking out, and I'll just be listening along the way.
Thank you, Taylor. Just get the right thing up here. So as Taylor mentioned, I've been, we talked, I've been doing equipment with football for 27 years now. 19 years of that was with the University of Calgary, and right now with Holy Trinity Academy. And also with what we had mentioned, mid-90s, I started working with Football Alberta, 2007 till present. I've been working with the provincial teams, and in 2015, I was named head equipment manager for Football Alberta. I've also done some work here and there with Football Canada. So the role of the equipment manager, obviously safety of the athlete is the #1 concern. The demands of the equipment manager in football, probably more challenging than in any other sports activity. Close would be hockey, but compared to most sports, football has the most demands when it comes to equipment. And quite importantly, managing the players' equipment requires as much teamwork between equipment managers, coaches, therapists, as is needed by the players on the field. These are some of the roles of the equipment manager. Probably not a complete list, but in that, knowledge is probably one of the biggest roles. And so with knowledge, you need to learn as much as possible about equipment available and its uses. Networking is very important. Talking with other equipment managers, that may be getting in contact with myself, a friend that works with a team in your league, maybe. University equipment managers, maybe even the professional equipment managers. I know Dwayne up in Edmonton and George in Calgary are quite approachable and willing to help out if you have any questions. You can contact manufacturers, suppliers to obtain information about their products. Football Canada has an equipment manual that is available. Maybe I was trying to find information on that on their website and wasn't able to today, but I did find it on the Football Alberta website. So the internet is a good place. Manufacturers' websites are quite good at providing information about their products. Most of them have YouTube channels that show how to use their products, how to fit them, features of individual products that they have. The Athletic Equipment Managers Association is another resource online you might be able to get some information from. So with fitting equipment and that, it's critical that everyone is a part of this. Yourself, coaches, everything. I've had coaches that have pointed out to me helmets not fitting on players. Just mentioning that a helmet's maybe bouncing around on a player a little too much. One of the big things in this job is that the technology around football equipment has rapidly developed over the last number of years. Since 2002, when Riedel came out with the Revolution helmet, helmet manufacturers, there's new helmets coming out every few years. Prior to that, when I started, there was Riedel helmet, bike helmet. They had interchangeable parts. The cheek pads were interchangeable. The masks were interchangeable. And since that, you really have to know what kind of equipment you have in your equipment room and what parts go to that helmet in particular. An important part, no protective equipment can prevent every injury, but when equipment is fitted properly, it offers its full protection to the athletes. This is something that will keep popping up in my talk tonight. Know your equipment. Know what you have in your equipment room, how it protects and why, how to make it fit, what parts or areas can be adjusted or interchanged to accommodate your individual athletes. Some quick basic recommendations in protecting your athletes. You want to maintain all the equipment conscientiously, regularly check to ensure that there's a proper fit. Helmets, through regular contact, will lose air, and so you want to keep checking the fit through the year to ensure that the helmets are still fitting properly. One thing I like to do is get my players involved in that. Teach them the importance of examining their own equipment and understanding their equipment. And if there's any changes in that equipment or signs of damage or anything, to report that to me. It's my job as an equipment manager to make sure that the players are given equipment that is safe and in proper working order. It's also, their safety is also their responsibility, in that if they need air, they need to come and report that to me. If they see something, a loose screw or anything, they can let me know. One thing, just because a player comes to your team with their own equipment doesn't mean they should be wearing that equipment. We have at Holy Trinity some players that come from Bantam with their own helmets that they had purchased for Bantam. I will look at those helmets and determine if they are suitable for use at our level. Sometimes you have players that come up and they have a youth helmet, and youth helmets are age rated up to junior high. So once you get to the high school level, you need to be using an adult helmet. And so those would not be good. We get those helmets of any players that are coming to us. We'll send them back for reconditioning with our helmets, get them painted in our color, and they're ready to wear for those players. One thing I do stress is that as the equipment manager, I make all the adjustments. If a player has any issues, they are to come to me. They don't try to adjust helmets or things themselves. And one thing that I feel is big is that all equipment should be worn, whether it is a practice or a game. That's not as big a deal now with the integrated girdles, but back when you had to insert the pads, a lot of times tail pads didn't make it in. But even now, knee pads, making sure that chin straps are on and done up while on the field, that sort of thing. So getting right to helmets. Helmets are probably the most important piece of equipment. They're the most complex and most expensive. They were initially designed back in around 1900 to protect from incidental contact. And even up to today, and I'll ask players this when I do my little equipment session in Hawaii with our U17 program. I'll ask them if they, why they wear a helmet. What's the purpose of wearing a helmet? And all the time you get to protect from concussions. And the main reason for wearing a helmet, still to this day, is to protect from incidental contact, to protect from skull fractures. No helmet can protect against a concussion. The shape of the helmet gives its protection, the deflection, absorption, and dispersion of the forces in a hit. In most helmets, they have an air system where you inflate air pockets that, as helmets are made for a wide range of head sizes, that provides the fit, but it also does provide protection through absorption. The helmet, chin strap, face mask together is all considered a single unit. When we'll talk about that in a little bit here. As I had mentioned, no helmet is concussion proof. Through the design and the new helmets that are coming out, they have designed them to try to mitigate the occurrence of concussions, but there is no helmet out there that is concussion proof. And there's so if you see a helmet come out that is shown to or they're claiming that it's concussion proof, they are not telling you the truth. No one helmet system will adequately protect all head shapes. Myself, I'm a Rydell. I prefer Rydell's, but I know there's some programs that will only have a Rydell or only have shut on the shelves, and I don't agree with that. I think there's different head shapes. Rydells typically fit a longer helmet or a longer head front to back, whereas shuts are more a round head shape. And so there's times where a type of helmet will not work for a certain athlete and their head shape. This picture here, this is one of my biggest things I watch for at camps, and that is players that sit on their helmets. I never allow players to sit on their helmet. A helmet is designed to protect the head, and it's not designed for the stresses that would be put on it with players sitting on them. just a quick mention. We've seen this logo imprinted on the back of helmets. All helmets have to be certified that they meet the NOCSAE standard. NOCSAE has been around for 50 years now. They are the governing body that comes up with standard tests and performance ratings that the athletic equipment has to meet in order to be certified. In 2017, NOCSAE updated their standards to address concussion risks from rotational forces. So now when they do impact testing, it isn't just for linear forces, but also rotational forces. And so helmets now have to meet that higher standard. When selecting helmets for your players, you want to make sure that they fit snugly on the players to protect them the most. You want a sufficient number in your equipment room that if you're going to carry 50 players, you don't want 52 helmets. You need to have enough helmets that you can get the proper sizes for your players. That can be tricky at times, trying to figure out which helmets or what sizes you need. I know I've been caught with the dynos at HTA, where you look at what you've been using and you make a decision on what sizes to purchase this year, and then you get players come in with head sizes that you weren't, that buck the trend. So having enough helmets on your shelf to try to fit properly the wide range of player sizes, that's important. You want to make sure that you purchase helmets designed and manufactured to meet the needs of a specific age group. As I had mentioned, the helmets, youth helmets, they're made of a lighter plastic to help with the smaller players, but they are only age rated up to junior high, so you don't want to have that in a high school player or above. You want to purchase helmets in your team colors. You don't want to paint helmets yourself. If you do need to paint it, you have to send that back for reconditioning and get it painted from a certified reconditioner. And you want, for whatever helmets you have in stock, you want a variety of helmet components, jaw pads, chin straps, hardware to make sure that you can adequately fit those helmets. Quick note on face masks. All helmets come pre-drilled from the factory for the face masks. So never re-drill a helmet to make a mask fit. If you're trying to get a mask to fit on a helmet and it's not fitting, chances are you might have the wrong mask for that helmet. You do not want to alter the face masks by removing bars. Had a player in dynos that had done that one year. He wanted one less bar on his mask and adjusted that himself. He did a very good job. I went through the locker room trying to find that, and it took a while for me to do it. He, like I said, did a really good job, but that will weaken the face mask. Masks come in different lengths. Typically your longer length ones are for your linemen, but you want to make sure that masks aren't too long, that they end up hitting the chest of a player, but you don't want them too short that players' chins are exposed. As I mentioned, with all the new helmets coming out, that parts are not interchangeable. So face masks are not interchangeable on the different helmets. And so make sure that you're using the proper face masks on that helmet and follow the manufacturer's guidelines for installation using the proper hardware. So here's some examples of that I've seen through my camps with Football Alberta. This is an old VSR4 helmet from Rydell with a Revolution mask. This was one a player came in and to camp and said his mask was a little loose and asked if I could look at it. It was a little loose. It wasn't even attached. Partly because it's the wrong helmet and mask combination. It's a Revolution helmet and a Schutt DNA mask. That clip should be up here. If you can see my cursor. And it's had to be put down here to match the hole. But then when they put the mask on, they didn't even use the hard plastic grommet on the back. And so the T-nut just popped through the hole.
Hey, Al, we can see your mouth, so you're good there.
Okay, thank you, Taylor. With this helmet, this is a Speed helmet, proper mask, but in the proper use of the proper attachment hardware. It should be a quick release, and obviously that got lost. And so on this side, they just used a screw and washer. Attached the clip to the shell quite well, but that screw goes right through that hole, and so that clip really is not holding that visor or that mask on that helmet properly. This is one that David, the co-manager for the University of Alberta, at a camp up in Edmonton, had sent me this picture. A Schutt Vengeance helmet with a Revolution mask. The hole to attach that is down here, but trying to get that mask on that helmet would either have it too close or sticking way far out, depending how you put the clip. Probably wouldn't line up too well. So whoever attached this one put the clip up here, but also had to drill a hole to make that mask fit. So with that, adding that hole there would possibly void the warranty on that shell. Looks pretty close to the edge of the helmet, so that that would affect the integrity of that helmet and possibly make it unusable. When you inspect face masks are now NOC-A approved as well. They'll have NOC-A printed usually on the inside of the mask somewhere. And as I had mentioned, once that face mask is attached to the helmet, it becomes one system. So if the face mask is not NOC-A approved, the entire system would not be NOC-A approved, which means that your warranty would be void, your liability in using that helmet would be increased. You want to check for bare metal showing, especially down in the States. That is, like, you cannot have any bare metal showing. According to the rule book, you're not supposed to here either, I believe. You want to check for broken welds, misshapen masks if they've been bent in any way, or as I mentioned before, missing bars. You want to replace any face masks that show these deficiencies. Chin straps, a couple things about chin straps. They're what hold the helmet in place during contact. There's different types. There's soft cup, hard cup. Through the years, there's been low point, mid point, high point hookups. There's the, and then there's some that come with a D-ring. And I'll just try this. You can see this chin strap here has the D-ring. Problem that I have with the D-ring is that doesn't matter how tight you make the straps, you have this pivot point. The cup will move on the helmet and will not give it a secure fit for the players. So quite often I don't allow I try to get my players not to use those, try to get them not to use those chin straps, as they will ride up or down, even though they are tight. You want to replace any chin straps that are broken if the cup is broken, or if the stitching, if the soft cup is cracked. Those could cause injury to the players, and they should be done up snugly at all times on the field. And that's one of my rules. If you're on the field, your chin strap is done up. And I had, you see players in warm-ups, in agility sessions that don't have their chin straps done up. Had one player with dynos that never did his up. Constantly I was on him, our therapists were on him, and he didn't, he'd do it up for one drill, next drill it would be undone. One day I was with our head therapist and pointed out, hey, this player's doesn't have it done up again. And on that play, it was a one-on-one drill, no contact with a DB, who's a receiver, and their feet got tangled up. He hit the ground, and his helmet popped off. His head hit the ground. We didn't have to mention to do up the chin strap after that, so obviously that's what it took for him to learn the lesson. But another thing with that, it should be done up snug at all times. With a traditional chin strap, you have the buckles. You set those buckles. They're not as easy to change for the players. But with the new Speed Flex helmets, with the ratcheting lower strap on the helmet, or on the chin strap, it's up to the players to make sure that they're snug before they go into a play. A couple years ago, U16, we had a player in a game that got hit. And as you know, when a helmet comes off of their head in play, they are removed from the field for 3 plays. If that happens, I will be right on that player to make sure to see why did your helmet pop off? Do you need more air? Do you need your chin strap adjusted? What was it? In this case, this player came off, and I asked what happened, and he told me he didn't tighten his chin strap, and he could put his helmet on and off without even any issue at all. So especially with the Speed Flex, I make sure that my players know they have to, it's up to them. They have to ensure that that chin strap is tight every time they go on the field. Quickly, some maintenance for helmets: mild soap, warm water, use a damp cloth to get normal grime off the shell and interior parts. If you have helmets with overliners, the Speed Flexes, take the overliners out and wash them. I do that as soon as players return them at the end of the season. I will strip all my helmets, bring all the overliners home, throw them in the wash machine on a delicate cycle, and hang them to dry. You don't want to over tighten the screws when you're attaching chin strap hardware, face mask hardware. That puts extra strain on the shell and can cause cracking. Don't strip screws. If you do, and you notice that you've stripped a screw, you want to replace that immediately. You don't want to leave that on that helmet and end up in a situation where you're in a game and that helmet needs, or you have a clip break and you need to replace it quickly and you can't get the screw out because you had stripped it. So you want to be cognizant of that. And once again, never paint helmets yourself. That voids the warranty. This is another set of pictures from David up in University of Alberta that he saw at a camp. This helmet, not even the helmet, but the front bumper, the rear bumper, face mask, all the clips, screws, everything was painted. So you want to make sure you don't do that. There are some paints that will react adversely with the plastic in the helmet, and that will cause or can cause the integrity of the helmet to be compromised. Inspecting helmets, you want to replace any damaged parts immediately, whether that is cracked ear pads or clips that are broken for face masks. You want to examine your helmets for cracks. Never use a helmet with a cracked shell. Check around holes in particular for cracks. Want to check, I said, the rivets, screws, Velcro, snaps for breakage, distortion, looseness, jaw pads, chin straps, air bladders. In Canada here, we can get some really cold days, especially towards the end of the season. And when it gets down to those -20, -30 days where we might still be out on the field, you can have air bladders that just shatter in the cold. So you want to be careful with that. If I was playing a game in really cold weather, I would stress to our players that they keep their helmets on, because if they take them off, put them on constantly, they're going from hot to cold situation, and that's where you can get those bladders cracking and shattering. Also, any valves on the Rydels that are replaceable, if you find that they're getting loose, air's not being held, you want to replace those through the season as needed. This helmet was one that we found in Hawaii with U17s one year. I was doing helmet checks and found this cracked helmet. This helmet was 3 years old and had fairly easy crack to spot. This was from our U16s a couple years ago in Lethbridge. Player came to, or I was doing air checks on our helmets and noticed that the player was missing the valve So I went to get a new valve, went to put it in, and while I was putting it in, I noticed that it appeared that this helmet was cracked along these lines here. It indeed is cracked. Took the parts out from the inside, and you can see that crack does go all the way on the inside as well. So around holes, those are the weakest points of the helmet, wherever a hole has been added or put in. So you do want to look around holes. This was on a valve hole on the top of the helmet, screw holes, and anything like that. You want to check for cracks. Reconditioning. Reconditioning is done through companies that are a part of the National Athletic Equipment Reconditioners Association. They recondition helmets to a NOCSAE standard. Typically, base price is about $35 now. If you have a painted helmet, you have to add $15. They strip the paint off, check the shell, and then repaint at the end. This is from the NOCSAE recertification process. When they receive your helmets, they take a test sample of your helmets, and they do the NOCSAE drop tests to make sure that they all pass those tests. They visually inspect all the helmets. They'll strip them down, take out all the parts, recondition any parts, repair any parts, replace any that are broken, clean, put it all back together, repaint it if it was painted, and then they retest those samples from step 2. And if they, once again, everything passes, then they get the recertification and labeling saying that they have been recertified. Proper inspection of helmets can reduce that cost of reconditioning. Before I send any of my helmets, I do a quick check on them. I look for those cracks. If you catch a crack and see that a helmet is cracked, it saves you $35 in sending that helmet back to them to send it back to you with rejected on it because it was cracked. With rejected helmets, you can request to get the parts back. If the shell was rejected for whatever reason, the bladders in it are still good, and now you have a spare. Effective in 2011, there was a change with NARA, NOCSAE, and the manufacturers that all helmets expire after 10 years from date of manufacture. So whether they've sat on the shelf or been out on the field, there's a 10-year life span on a helmet now. And just new in 2017, to maintain your warranty on your helmet, all helmets must be recertified, reconditioned every other year. So any helmets manufactured 2017 and later all have to go through recommended recertification every 2 years to maintain your warranty. Rydell, if you recondition through them, they put this sticker on. It shows what year it was reconditioned and the initial season, and just a reminder of that 10 years. The warranty on a helmet, the warranty on your shell on an adult helmet is 5 years. So like I said, you've got 5-year warranty, but they have to be reconditioned every other year to maintain that warranty. It's 3 years on a youth shell. The components in your helmet, bladders, that type of air pockets, and all that is a 1-year warranty on that. Zenith has a 2-year on their shock bonnet. The age, there used to be codes that were embedded right into the shell. Right now, I believe everything should be labeled with a sticker inside the helmet as to when it was manufactured. As I mentioned, lifespan of the shell is 10 years now. No helmets beyond 10 years should be out on the field. I found this on the NOCSAE website when I was looking. Just 3 quick steps for helmet safety. And most of it I've mentioned. Know your helmet, maintain your helmet, and prioritize safe play. Hello, Taylor.
Hey, Alan. Great job, sir. I'll give you a minute to catch your breath if you want. I had a question just via text, but you kind of mentioned it there with Riddell, but do you recommend any companies that can do helmet reconditioning, or who's available, or who's some good options?
In Alberta, what I would suggest is contact your helmet supplier, whether that's Skyline Athletics. You can recondition through them. They'll send it back through Riddell. If you send it through Kahunaverse, they use their reconditioners, either Schutt or they have another one that they've in Continental they've used, but and other suppliers. If you talk to your sales rep, they should be able to help you in doing that. It doesn't matter, Riddell, Schutt, every reconditioner can recondition every type of helmet. So you don't have to send all your Riddells back through Riddell or all your Schutts back through Kahuna. Everything you can send them either place, and they set up the whole sending your helmets back to their reconditioner, and then those get sent back directly to you.
Yeah, so I'll just, there's another question that we'll get to you. I'm not sure if you have the chat up, or actually that's sent to me privately, but I know one of our sponsors is Skyline Athletics, and whether it's Chris Kircher or somebody in the Calgary area, they'll actually drive around to your clubhouse, your lockup, pick up your 10, 15, 20 helmets, whatever it is each year, handle all the logistics, and then bring them back to you shiny, ready to go. And I don't know what you said, 3 to 4 weeks, 2 months, I don't know how long.
Yeah, usually a couple months.
Yeah. And then, so what does warranty mean? What does that entail when you're talking about helmet warranty?
If you have a helmet that is that you find a crack on, that is covered under warranty. That type of thing. If it goes back for reconditioning within that and they find a crack, they'll replace that. That would be your warranty. It's mostly for cracks in the shell.
That's all I had for now. You go ahead and continue. I'm sure we'll have questions along the way. And just a reminder, if you guys have any questions, feel free to throw it in the group chat privately or directly to me, or fire me a text. And I think Alan's going to talk about all the equipment that we put on a football player, obviously helmet being the most important, and moving on a little less focus on some of the other ones. So you're doing great, Alan. Thank you very much, and continue on.
Thank you. Helmet manufacturers right now, there's 5 helmet manufacturers, I believe, at the time. Riddell and Schutt are your main ones. Zenith has been around since 2006. They started doing research on their helmet, kind of revolutionized helmet in what was used in helmets. They don't have an air inflation system. They use a shock bonnet. It looks like it's got like little hockey pucks all on the inside of it, and that's all connected to the chin strap. And so sizing of the Visus, or sorry, Zenith, is through the chin strap fitting. Visus, that's the soft shell helmet that came out a couple years ago. Visus had financial problems the end of last year, and when I was just updating my slides here, found that they, earlier this month, beginning of April, they were bought out by a capital venture company. And so looking at their website, they say over the next few weeks, they'll have information on what will be happening with their helmets and their company. Light helmets, that's a new one on the market. I think they've just started pre-sales on their helmet. They were a company that was formed in buying out the SG helmets that came on a few years ago. That was a helmet that was designed by Bill Simpson, a race car helmet designer. He's been designing race car helmets since 1979. He brought the new technology of race car helmets to the football field and tried to come up with a football helmet incorporating those safety features that we see in modern race car helmets. They were bought out a couple years ago, and the new company is called Light Helmets. They use a Kevlar shell, so it's lighter than any other helmet on the market. And like I said, they're just unveiled their new helmet, and so I'm not sure much more on that helmet. When fitting helmets, haircuts is important. The amount of hair that a player has can alter the fit of the helmet. It's really good if your players come in to get fit and they have the hairstyle that they're going to have through the season. Drastic changes in hairstyles can affect fit of helmets. In 2008, Football Canada Cup, our U17 South team, players started to decide that shaving their heads was a good team building event. Quickly found out that their helmets weren't fitting, and we had to bring a very quick end to the haircuts. It's one thing if you're at home and you've got access to other helmets. It's another thing when you're in Quebec at a tournament and your helmets are all too loose on your players. You want to ensure that anyone fitting or inflating helmets knows the proper procedures. That could be at the original helmet fitting or through the year. Inflating helmets, you want to make sure that you use glycerin to not saliva when inserting the needle into the valves. Another thing with the Rydell's, they use a inflation needle that is a little shorter than a standard inflation needle, and that's to ensure that you don't go through the bladder and put a hole in the interior of it. Unfortunately, with that shorter needle doesn't work on shut helmets or other helmets that require inflation. So that means you either have to carry 2 needles, 2 pumps, or have a longer one and just very carefully insert it into Rydell helmets so that you don't puncture the air bladder. As I mentioned, you want to have plenty of spare parts of different sizes on hand to properly fit your players. Again, comes up, know your helmet, the manufacturer, model, parts, whatever you have in your equipment room, you want to know and understand what you have, what parts go with what helmets, what can be changed, either adjusted or changed to a different size to make that helmet fit properly. So quickly going through fitting a helmet. You want to check the head size. Take a soft measuring tape, wrap it around the circumference of the head, approximately 1 inch above the eyebrows, above the ears. Record that measurement, and then using the sizing chart for the helmets you have, that will determine which helmet size you need for that player. Helmet fitting is it's best when demonstrated. So I found this, looked online on YouTube to see, and I found this video by USA Football that I felt best described the fitting of helmets. So I'll let you watch that now.
All helmets feature interior padding, generally positioned at the front, sides, back, and crown of the helmet. These pads are for the comfort and protection of the player and can often be adjusted to improve player fit. Many football helmet models feature air inflation fit systems. The manufacturer will provide a fitting booklet with a step-by-step guide to help you with the inflation fitting process. If your helmet doesn't feature an inflation fit system, the manufacturer may provide other fitting tools, pad sizes, or accessories. Please refer to the fitting booklet that accompanies your helmet for detailed fitting procedures. Regardless of your helmet model, there are few goals in achieving a properly fit football helmet. A properly fitted helmet should rest approximately 1 inch above the player's eyebrows. A player should never wear a helmet that's positioned too low or too high. Follow the manufacturer's instructions if helmet height adjustment is necessary. As a final height check, interlock your hands on top of the helmet and press down on the exterior shell. A properly fit helmet will exert pressure on the crown of the player's head. If when pressing down, the player feels pressure on his brow, he doesn't have a proper fit. The interior padding at the front, sides, and back of the helmet should give the player's head firm, cushioned support. There should be no room for twisting. The skin of the player's forehead should move with the padding at the front of the helmet. Football helmets usually have adjustable pads at the sides of the player's face and/or below the player's ear. These are often referred to generically as jaw pads, but they can come in different shapes and can have important fitting and protective functions. When properly fit, these pads should feel firm against the player's face, jaw, or under the player's ear, depending upon the helmet model. If they look or feel loose, if there's a space between the pad and face, change to a thicker size. If they're too tight, change to a thinner size. These pads are sometimes inflatable as well. Refer to the manufacturer's instructions for changing pad thicknesses or adjusting inflation. If the helmet slides easily over the player's forehead, refer to the manufacturer's instruction to adjust the fit or try a smaller sized helmet. Finally, a snug centered chin strap is essential for proper helmet fit. All helmets come with either a soft or hard cup chin strap. Buckle the chin strap into the snaps located near the helmet's ear holes, making sure the cup is centered and snug over the player's chin. The chin strap is adjustable and can easily be modified to fit the player. If the cup fit is loose, if it's not firmly pressed against the chin, tighten it until it fits properly. With the chin strap buckled, the helmet should feel comfortable and snug. Chin straps are available in multiple sizes to best fit the player's chin.
Hey, Al, did you, can you see the chat on your screen at all?
I tried to pull it up here.
No problem. Just a question about what's wrong with saliva. And Coach Sylvain did mention it creates moisture inside the bladder, which can lead to cracking over time. You agree with that?
It's also, your saliva is salty, so it can dry out that valve. Likewise, you shouldn't choose like a petroleum jelly, as that can affect the valve. All the manufacturers recommend glycerin for that.
Cool, thanks. Continue on.
Okay. Slight differences with that video. in the Zenith. As they don't have the air inflation, they use that shock bonnet, and the proper fit for that comes from the chin strap. Probably the biggest issue I see in Football Alberta camps is players that come that do not have their helmet properly fit, have not been shown how to properly fit that helmet. With that helmet, it's all in the lower straps of the chin strap. Once you get the top straps set, you take that lower strap, you pull out to the sides, and that sucks that shock bonnet down onto your head. Now, the one thing about the Zenith that I like is it doesn't matter the head shape. If you have a player with an odd-sized or odd-shaped head, the Zenith might be the answer that you need to get a helmet that will suck down to their head. And when you pull on that chin strap, it sucks that down. You adjust the buckles, you do it up, and that's the proper fit, and it should be snug then. Last year at Senior Bowl, I had a player that going around doing helmet checks, asked him, "How's your helmet?" And he said, "Oh, it's really good." I said, "Okay, well, let me check." And as I checked, I hold the face mask and move it up and down, side to side, with them holding their head still. He said that it was moving all over the place, side to side, up and down, and that was that it wasn't fit properly to him. I had him undo the bottom straps, pull them out to the side, and his eyes kind of went wide as that sucked down on his head. I adjusted the straps, did him up, asked him how that was. He said in 3 years of playing high school football, that was the first time that his helmet actually fit him. So if you do have the Zenith, make sure that you are showing the players how to properly fit, and when you are fitting helmets, that you properly fit them with that chin strap. Just a quick reminder on helmet fitting. Measure the head. You want to check that it's sitting at the right level above the eyebrows, about 1 inch or so. Not too low, not too high. Adjusting the top air bladder, if you have that adjustment, to do that. You want to ensure that the ear hole is lined up with their ear. That's another thing that should happen. The chin strap is properly adjusted, fastened. Another note with the chin strap, quite often I'll see chin straps that weave up and over the mask before attaching. They should all go between the shell and the mask. That will provide the best fit. And as we know, helmet comes off, you're out for 3 plays. If that chin strap did get undone, better chance that it's going to catch on the buckle and hold than if it went out and over the mask. Apply the crown pressure, check for movement, check that it's contacting the crown, not the brow. With that point, couple days into camp, quite often players haven't worn their helmets for a while. They come to you, they've got that red mark on their forehead, and they're complaining that their helmet's too tight. They need air taken out of their helmet. In those cases, I'd say probably close to 90% of the time, it's not that they need air taken out of the back, it's that they need more air put in the top. If they come and say they need air taken out, first thing I do is I have them interlock their fingers and pull down on their helmet. Where's the pressure? Chances are it's going to be on the brow, on the forehead, where it should be on the crown. So adding a little air in the top of the helmet, raising that helmet off the brow, usually will alleviate that and give them the proper fit. So it's not a case that they need air out, it's they actually need air in at the top. When I do helmet checks, like I said, I'll check for that crown. I'll have them hold their head still while I hold their mask and go side to side, up and down, checking that it is moving the skin on the forehead, and that there isn't excess movement side to side or up and down. Shoulder pads, again, absorb, deflect, distribute is part of the shoulder pads to protect the shoulder anatomy from the effects of blows. Just like any other piece of equipment, I mentioned that there's no guarantee of injury, but when they're properly fitted and worn, they can reduce the severity of injury. There's two main types of pads. There's the cantilever pads and the flat pads. Just to mention, the cantilever, that's typically your older style. They usually sit up. They've got a cantilever strap between the padding and the upper arch that distributes the force of impact. Flat pads, those are your typically pads that have a belt rather than just the elastic strap. Sometimes they'll have both. These are mostly what's out there nowadays. They sit lower on the shoulders, they're a lower profile pad. But the reason why I wanted to mention this is this point here. It is extremely important to wear those belts secured as tight as possible. If you push down on those pads, they want to flatten out. They don't have that cantilever that's holding them up. They want to flatten out. If you have a player that wears those pads with the belts done up lightly or loosely, that impact on the shoulder will make the pad flatten out, bottom out, and could lead to injury or more extreme injury to the player from that contact. So that's the one thing in shoulder pads. If they have that belt, you want to make sure that they are secured quite snug. Maintenance, clean periodically with mild soap and a soft brush. It removes perspiration, minimizes deterioration of the padding covering. If you do clean your pads, you do not want to submerge the padding. Don't fill the bathtub and stuff them in and scrub them. Submerging the padding can deteriorate the padding and lessen the lifespan of those pads. You could, if you had a facility that allowed, you could use a shower or a power washer on low after the season to spray down those. You want to, if you do wash or your pads, you do want to ensure that they are fully dried before you put them away to prevent mold or mildew. One thing I always suggest to players is that they wear a t-shirt under their equipment. This protects against chafing of the skin. It also protects the equipment from the body salts. Some things to inspect when you're looking at your shoulder pads. You want to check the straps, webbing, rivets for any damage, sharp edges, metal loops, your T-hooks on the elastic straps. On the belts, the rivets, if they start getting sharp edges, those can injure your players. Laces, you want to replace them if they get frayed. You want to do that before you're in a game and someone's pads break and you're scrambling to replace that. You want to check for cracks or breaks in the plastic. Sometimes the flaps, your top epaulets, can start warping. Unlike helmets, which have the 10-year lifespan, there is no set date for shoulder pads. So when you're doing your postseason inventory and you're checking your shoulder pads, you want to check for any of these issues and place as needed. Fitting shoulder pads, the position determines the type of pad. There's different pads for different positions. And as you move up in level of pad, or move up in cost of the pad, usually your options increase, where a lower level pad, you might have something made for a skill player or a lineman type sizing. Whereas when you get up to higher level pads, you might have broken down to even position, a QB pad, a DB pad, an O-line pad, with specific sizes of padding, thicknesses, shapes of the pad themselves, the size of the epaulets, all that. There's many manufacturers. Most of them have the same kind of measurement system, but there might be some out there that might size a little different. So if you are able to find that out on their website or through anything you get with the pads, that's good to know. You want to measure the shoulder width with the arms hanging at the sides. And again, a short little video. This time, best one I found was from Riddell. But like I said, go on YouTube. Most manufacturers will have a video on how to fit their pads.
Shoulder pads should provide optimal protection and a range of motion conducive to a player's on-field responsibilities. The first step in properly fitting your Riddell shoulder pads is to measure your chest size and shoulder width and match it to Riddell's shoulder pad fitting chart, which can be found on Riddell.com or in a Riddell catalog. To get an accurate chest measurement, wrap a measuring tape around the upper torso of the player, beginning and ending in the center of the chest. To determine a player's shoulder width, stretch a measuring tape over the shoulders, starting from the tip of the left humerus and ending on the tip of the right humerus. Shoulder pads come in a wide range of models and sizes. Now that you have an accurate chest and shoulder width measurement, choose shoulder pads best suited for the player's position. To secure proper fit, pull the straps or belts to connect the front and back of the pads and to establish a tight fit in the chest area and back. A tight fit will lock the pads into place over the humerus so that they can absorb impact and direct energy away from the AC joint. Make sure there is no pinching or binding in the collar or neck opening. A player should be able to turn his or her head from side to side without pinching the skin. Most Riddell shoulder pads include removable padding that can be adjusted to optimize fit. Make sure there is coverage over the sternum, front upper shoulders, scapula, and rhomboid. Properly fitted shoulder pads will cover and protect the player's shoulder blade and upper musculature of the player's back. Remember, properly fitted shoulder pads are an important first step in player protection.
A couple extra points in fitting shoulder pads. Once I get a pair of shoulder pads on a player, I'll test their arm movement. As they're pinching in the neck, and have them do some position movements to test the pads. They should snap back to a regular position, not stay raised up. You want to make sure if you have a receiver that when they reach up, that they're able to get up to catch a ball, that their arms aren't stopped part way. So you want to make sure that they match the position that player is. Taylor.
Okay, I was on mute. Is it possible to replace the belts on flat shoulder pads?
There used to be a company in Calgary, and I still have to do that. Obviously, right now with the situation, I haven't been able to, or I haven't looked into that yet. There used to be a company that would do repairs on athletic equipment, and that they could do that. I will look into that, and I can look into that and see if they're still around. There might be a company in Edmonton as well that does repairs on equipment that could replace those belts.
Okay, I'll save the name. I'll email you the gentleman's name, and
okay.
I have his email address, and you can follow up with him.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So generally, in fitting shoulder pads, so again, you measure chest, shoulders, select the pads, put the pads on, secure those straps and laces, and ensure that there's the proper coverage front and back, and that they fit properly. Have them do those little drills to make sure that they're going to work for that player. Some other protective equipment and kind of knowing the rules around that. A couple points I wanted to make in this. Knowing the rules regarding equipment is very important. For instance, what can be used? Knee pads have to be 1/2 inch thick. That has been something that I know last year was an issue in some areas of the province, and so knee pads have to be 1/2 inch thick. The length of studs in cleats, not as many 7 studs out there now with our playing surfaces, but some players might have that. 1/2 inch is the maximum length, and they cannot be steel tipped or be metal at all. What alterations can be made? Section 11, Article 1C in the Canadian Amateur Rulebook for tackle football says equipment shall be designed and manufactured by a professional manufacturer and shall not be altered in any way which will decrease the protection of the player. Best example of that I can share is knee pads. Players like smaller knee pads, so they cut their knee pads, shave them down. That is in violation to this rule and makes those illegal. Manufacturers have adjusted for that and come out with the smaller sized knee pads to allow for that. And manufactured by the manufacturer, so they are legal as long as they are that 1/4 inch thick. What has to be covered? This picture here, the one on the right, shows a back plate that is jersey tucked on up above the back plate. That is illegal. All the shoulder pad, any attachments to it have to be covered. Also in this, he's wearing a knee brace that is not covered, and that has to be covered as well. The picture on the left, you see this, the left shoulder epaulet out. That also has to be covered. See that quite often in practices where players will tuck their jerseys up in either that epaulet or the next flap up here. That's something that I don't allow on the field when I'm there. It is a safety issue. All it takes is an awkward tackle and that pad not being held down, go through a mask, make contact with the eye, and you have an eye injury that could have been prevented with the jersey being worn properly. Other protective equipment. This is where working with the therapists, athletic therapists, is crucial. You have a player that's coming back from injury. Maybe there's a pad that they could use, possibly a shoulder injury pad, spider, skeleton, different names for that, worn underneath the shoulder pads that might give some extra protection to an AC joint. Those type of things. So working with the athletic therapists or physios or whatever that might be helping out with your program to make sure that the players have equipment. This can also work with networking. If there's a need mid-season for an item, maybe there's another team nearby. If you have a relationship with someone there that maybe they have one of those pieces of equipment that you need, that they can borrow to you until you can get an opportunity to get one, or without having to get one if you need it just for a few weeks. Mouth guards, just the one thing with the rule book there, they must cover all the upper jaw teeth. So there's some players that like to shave them down just small, just cover the front teeth. That makes them illegal. Wanted to talk about visors. The rule on visors has changed many times over the last 15, 20 years. Anything kind of went, and then one broke in the CFL, and then no visors were allowed, and then slowly they came back and rules changed over time. The present rule is visors must not have any tint. They have to be clear only, no tint allowed. You don't need a doctor's note or any note to wear a visor. There's no, if you have a doctor's note, you can wear a tinted visor. Those rules are all gone now. The only visors that are allowed are clear visors. And with visors, the curvature of some of the new face guards, they aren't compatible with visors. If you have to really bend that visor to get it to fit in the face guard, there's a lot of pressure put on that visor, and there's risk of breakage of it. If you notice that you have a broken face mask, or a broken visor, or cracked, there's a crack in it, you never want to use that. You want to get rid of that right away. Obviously risk of eye damage or injury with a broken visor. Quick note on practice pants. One thing I mentioned is that they should provide the same fit and characteristics as game pants. You go with a cheaper practice pant. Usually they don't have Lycra, they're just straight polyester. And the problem with that is they usually fit baggy, and so they don't hold the pads maybe in the right place as they would in a Lycra game pant. So I always go with find a Lycra pad or pant that is that will fit more like a game pant, tighter, and offer better protection to the athletes. Use of shorts and volleyball knee pads, I'm not a big fan of that. I know from experience that seems to be something more common in northern Alberta than southern Alberta. When we have camps at our trial camps, or you make one of the provincial teams, we send out a note to all the players beforehand saying that they must have full football equipment, which includes practice pants and knee pads. We put that in there, and we still get players that come with shorts and volleyball knee pads. Part of the problem with that is you have a couple players that are wearing shorts. The next practice, I've had a dozen players wearing shorts. They don't have the volleyball knee pads, and then so they're just wearing shorts. And I kick them off the field, back to the locker room to get their pants on. The practice pants, I feel, give the best protection. And like I said, same characteristics as game pants. So for a full contact practice with full pads, that's my recommendation. Just a quick mention on some in-house maintenance and storage. Factors that increase the lifespan of your equipment: proper cleaning, removal of moisture, completion of minor repairs. In that, if you have a jersey and you get a small hole in the jersey, small holes become big holes. So if you can repair that jersey when it's got a small hole, it will prevent it from becoming a bigger repair or a need to replace. Adequate storage area, both in season, post season, in a dry, well-ventilated area away from direct sunlight. An organized storage area so that you can get to what you need when you need it. In-house maintenance, you want to clean and well maintain your equipment. By doing that, it can lower your operating costs and provide a safer playing environment. Once a piece of equipment is used, it should be cleaned prior to being reissued. And it's best to clean that as soon as possible after use and before storage. It gets rid of the body salts, any chemicals used on your fields, grass fields, and fertilizer, or anything like that that can break down that equipment. For example, in the speed helmet, if I get one back and another player wants that helmet, before I will give that helmet out to that player, the overliner is washed, and the helmet is cleaned before being reissued. There's a lot of different storage racks available, and different storage concepts. Whatever you use, you want to make sure that your equipment is being stored in their natural shape. You want it to be worn as the manufacturer intended. For example, storage, shoulder pad storage racks. They can hold a lot of equipment, can hold a lot of pairs of shoulder pads. The issue with that being that the pads on the bottom are being compacted by the weight of all the pads above them, which can affect the life and protection that those pads provide. Also, if you have a rack like this and you have a lot of pads on them, you get down to the bottom, sometimes those pads are flattened out, and so they aren't in their natural shape, and so that can affect the protection and life of that shoulder pad as well. And if looking at repair versus replacement and the costs involved and the benefits, is it cheaper to repair something versus replacing it? So you have to look at and compare those costs and make that decision. If a pair of shoulder pads, I've got some shoulder pads that need new belts this year. One of them, the shoulder pad is in really good shape otherwise, whereas some of the other ones, they're starting to show their age. And so for those ones, spending the money to replace the belt when I might only get another year out of that shoulder pad doesn't make any sense to repair that pad. Budgeting and purchasing, just a few quick notes on this. Coming out of the reality that we are in right now, money and budgeting is going to become even more of an issue, as a lot of our fundraising isn't happening this off season, and our budgets become more important and tighter. So some recommendations on that. You want to try not to buy anything that you haven't had in your hands. It isn't always easy, especially if you order things online. But we've all, I'm sure, bought that piece of equipment. It's a good price, or and we've gotten it and it just wasn't what we expected it was going to be, or the quality wasn't quite there. In uniforms, buying uniforms and you get them all in, you spend quite a bit of money on that. You get your jerseys in and you find that the cut of them, they just don't, they fit loose, they fit baggy. And according to the rules now, you can't use, they have to be tucked in. They can't be taped up at the back to make them snugger. So that is quite important in making sure that what you buy is what you hope it to be. Purchase the best equipment available. That's not necessarily the cheapest or the most expensive. It may be, but you don't want to necessarily just go for the most expensive, and you don't necessarily need to. Again, do not simply buy the cheapest. It is your responsibility to ensure that each player is properly fitted. So purchase what you believe is the safest system for each player. Make wise decisions. Carefully consider the need to make the purchase, especially with like a piece of field equipment. They can be very expensive, and I'll get into that on the next slide, I believe. But one quick thing I did want to mention here, we have seen at the Football Alberta camps where a school was using some youth helmets, and whether that was a budgetary thing, they're cheaper, budget's tight, it's putting the player safety at risk. For my feeling is for a salesperson to sell a high school that those type of that type of equipment that isn't rated for that age is not good. But you just want to make sure that you're buying the safest equipment that you believe for your players, the proper age and proper I lost my train of thought, sorry. So selecting a vendor, some things can come into play there. Availability of the product, of the equipment that you need. Follow-up service. If you buy this helmet, do they have parts on hand that if you need something mid-season, is it something you can get quickly, or is it something that they're going to have to special order and you might get it 4 or 5 weeks down the line? The warranty of that equipment, that they provide quality goods, that type of thing. Inventory. Besides communication and knowledge of your equipment, one of the most important jobs for an equipment manager is record keeping. In-season, off-season inventories are important. Making notes as the season goes along, debriefing with those notes at the end of the season, doing a mid-season inventory. Just a quick, I go through my room, just quickly note what I still have, what size helmets, types of helmets that I still have on the shelf, what I have for shoulder pads. If I find that a shoulder pad isn't being used, and it can help me determine what I need going forward. What did you need? What didn't you need? What was I using? If I was short on something, make a note of that so that at the end of the season, when it comes to sitting down with your coach or to figure out what you need to order, you can say, we were short of this and I need to get some more of those. Or, you know what, we didn't use any of those, we've got lots of them, I don't need that. So it does help you in your budgeting and purchasing. When you're looking at on-field equipment, as I mentioned, this equipment can be very expensive. You have to consider how many hours of use you're going to get out of that for the amount of money being spent. If it's something that you're going to use at the beginning of your practice for 5 minutes, and you have to consider, is it a wise use of your budget? Are there other options available? You can go through some of the on-field equipment providers, Rogers, Gilman, and maybe you need to, or you would like to get a hoop for your D-line for a drill. Are there other options available? You could go down to your hardware store, get some hose, attach it together, a lot cheaper, and it does the trick. So are there other options available to what you need? One thing to consider before purchasing, where are you going to store this piece of equipment? If it's a large piece of equipment with lots of pads that have to be stored inside, do you have the space in your equipment shed or storage area to store those pieces of equipment? And that is everything.
Well, thank you very much, Alan. I invite anybody if they want to turn their cameras on and ask Alan a question or type it in. We will be sharing this PDF and the recording of this through the Google Drive. I'll share it with everybody, and please feel free to pass it on, like I said, to any of maybe your equipment managers or anybody interested, or a young parent who's just getting involved at Adam or Pee Wee, and maybe able to help your organization. So on the chat bar, I'm not sure if everybody has it open, but Done Right Sports Equipment Repairs in Calgary.
That's the company that I've used before, and I had to check to see if they were still there, but
so Alan, I guess, would recommend them. So does Kevin in the chat. I'm not sure about anywhere, maybe in Northern Red Deer, Edmonton, or anywhere else. But, once again, Alan Naylor with Football Alberta and Holy Trinity Academy. Looks like Coach Hassett was joining today as well. Maybe he can actually take some of this and maybe help Al once in a while, but no comment there, eh? Any questions at all, feel free to jump on. I'm sure there's questions here. If not, everybody else have a good night. We'll stick around for a couple minutes as the questions come in. What's your helmet preference? You did say Riddell earlier, but what's your preference? I guess you did mention you should have both.
my I'm a little biased. I do like the Rydell's, but like I said, Zenith is a good helmet if you've got a player that is hard to fit. All the manufacturers, they're all good. They all are they all pass that NOC certification. So it's for a lot of players, it's preference. Sometimes it's what they first used and then what they use now. Like it. So
I'll put you on the spot here, and
okay.
I won't use the word cheap, because I absolutely do not mean cheap when we're talking about youth and helmets and football and safety of our children. What would be, if I'm starting a program and finances are tight, what would be the most economically responsible helmet if I can't afford the $750 pro helmet? Like, what's a good starter helmet for a local organization?
Really are
obviously safe.
When you come to youth helmets, I don't know youth helmets as much as the adult ones, but in the youth helmets, there's a wider range. I'd say you have some that they only have padding, some that will provide padding with a combination of padding and air inflation. But like I said, you really did put me on the spot there.
No worries. I will ask. Well, I'll make one other comment. So Skyline Athletics is the Football Alberta partner. So if you guys do have any questions about helmets specifically, you can email me. I'll be glad to pass on to Alan and or Chris Kircher as our representative. I was texting with him a little bit earlier during Alan's presentation, and he'd be happy to answer any questions. He would be the Riddell supplier for Northern Alberta and a lot of the province. So what are your thoughts on stickers?
I was just reading that comment there. Stickers on helmets. It's recommended that you get a proper helmet sticker if you're using stickers. Going through one of the suppliers, Skyline, Laguna, any of that, to get helmet decals that are specific for football. The quality and durability of those stickers is better than just like a straight sticker. Stickers on helmets, like with team logos, some teams have them, some don't. It's pretty much preference of that program. Stars on the back for achievement. We did that at HTA this year. We had some recognition decals. It's like I said, it's all it's basically preference of that program, I would say.
Any issues with warranty at all in terms of stickers or anything? Doesn't sound like it. Paint is the big one.
Yeah, there shouldn't be, especially if you're using, like, purchasing them through Skyline or Kahuna, or if you go online, and there's some that are that it isn't just a paper sticker or something, but actually getting like an athletic decal. Those would be safe for your helmets.
Great. There was a question about if you know how much the Light helmet brand is. Another gentleman went online, said $550 USD on their website. I'm not sure if you've heard that or know anything different.
In kind of researching and updating this for tonight, I did see that. I didn't actually go digging to find the price for that, but.
Okay, have you given any thought, and I'm going to put you on the spot again, about new COVID-like restrictions and thoughts and how it may change the way you operate on a day-to-day basis when it comes to hopefully football in September, August, obviously water bottles being one. Have you thought about that at all, or anybody in your industry talking about that yet?
It's definitely going to be a new normal as we come out of this, and there's going to be changes that are made. Change isn't always bad. I was talking with my friend Andrea. She's the equipment manager for the University of Saskatchewan today, and we were talking about some changes that could happen coming out of this, and I think we just have to wait and see and figure out what is going to happen coming out of this.
Sure. How do you store your shoulder pads? Or best case scenario, if you have all the space in the world, what's the best way to store shoulder pads?
We have one of those storage pad or those shoulder pad storage racks. If you have one of those, you do want to be careful how you you're going to want to be careful how you stack the pads. Maybe similar sizes altogether. You don't want something bigger on something smaller that is going to compact that. It's also recommended that you maybe store those upside down to prevent it from flattening out at the bottom as much. If at all possible, if you can do it without over stacking those, that's best for the shoulder pads.
What is an overstack? You put 10 on, is that too many typically?
I'm not.
No worries.
Yeah, you just don't want to really stack it really high and have those pads. And if you get to the bottom of those pads and you find that they're being compacted or flattened out,
you've done too many.
Have too many.
Okay. Any last questions? I guess if you want to pop your camera up, feel free to jump on as long as you're properly dressed. Who's your favorite coach on the HT?
Kevin told me he was going to ask that question. I'm waiting for Scott to come on. I hear he's the question person.
Oh yeah, is Scotty Ledoux still here? Scotty, you're the celebrity questioner.
I'm waiting, Scott.
Are you ready with your question? He had to get dressed probably.
Yeah.
Scotty, what's your question of the night, buddy?
Hello, Scott.
Can I get a ride to Max? Is my question.
Sure, I'll be right over.
Oh. No, great job, Al. Learned a lot. Thank you.
Hey, Scott, what's your thought on serializing your equipment for tracking it? What's your thoughts on that, Scotty?
I need to do a better job of that because my room is a disaster. So that's something I need to pick up a little bit more.
Is that anything that you do, Al, or how do you inventory your equipment?
So on my shoulder pads, I just number them and have that in Excel spreadsheet, and keep track of what was used every year, who used it, and that. Helmets, same type of thing. I number them all, and keep track of those.
Perfect. We'll end it there. Scotty, I expect better from you next time. Next time you're on, I expect a better question, a hard-hitting question. And good night to everybody. We'll stop the record. I'll set it up on the Google tonight and fire it out tonight as soon as Al sends me his PDF. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.